Hello and welcome to another episode of the Revenue Revolution podcast brought to you by Joint Flows. Today, we have the privilege of being joined by the man, the legend himself, Tom Cassley. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. A legend, maybe not a legend.
I think if you ask 100 people within our community, they'd probably, at least 98 of them would say you're a legend.
Oh, bless them. Yeah, I've done
There
a
you go.
good job in marketing. Yeah.
But welcome to the show. We always like to start off with a brief introduction. Most people probably do know you, but just in case they don't, who is Tom Castley and how have you got to where you've got to?
Oh wow. So been in sales forever. Started selling SaaS before it was called SaaS. Um, Made a bit of a career bringing American software companies over to Europe. Actually, I worked with Mick at one of those. And I'm currently 2 years into a gig with a company called Sedna that nobody will have heard of. Um, Effectively, we provide the email and communication infrastructure for the maritime industry. So nothing happens in shipping until somebody sends or receives an email. We process billions of them a year on behalf of companies, some of which you will have heard of, like the big ones like Exxon, Chevron, BP, but somebody like Oldendorf, one of the biggest ship owning and operator companies in the world, and pretty much everything that's behind either of you will have been on a ship at some point. And to organize that, somebody sent an email, and that's what we provide. Yeah.
Tom, awesome to have you here. I'm personally a big fan and ever so grateful to have met you in my journey. We speak about revenue execution, sales becoming more complex, sales reps turning into project managers, and the conversation is really about how do you put this at scale, essentially, when it's still very much about the art rather than the science to selling. And obviously prepping for the call, we had a few topics we went through and covered. But maybe just to get started, what's your take on the evolution of sales, its level of complexity, and all the buyer-led stuff we hear about, which can become a little bit complex to get hold of?
Yeah, look, technology sales in particular, I'm sure there's different people do have different problems. I look at tech companies or people who are buying anything in one of three categories. And actually, it was Sequoia that did this research a little while ago. They called it, I forget what it is. I'll share it with you afterwards, Mick, if I can find it, and maybe you can put it out with the podcast. But they talked about three archetypes. You've got the kind of the world on fire type solutions. So think, Y2K solutions were good, when we were going through year 2K, or if there's something to do with compliance or cyber security or something, people just buy it because they have to, and it's like a fire sale to get it done. Yeah. Those companies grow really quickly, but they can also fade really quickly as well. You then got the next big thing, like the shiny new toys, anything with AI, agentic, software companies. People spend a fortune in this area. Things like Bitcoin and stuff. Yeah, people spend billions on Bitcoin, and did it really go anywhere inside industry? So I do worry about the amount of money that's spent on those two areas. Yeah, the bit in the middle, and actually where a lot of VCs spend their time investing, is what they call the hard facts. This is people who are solving problems that people have either given up on, are not aware of, have put in the too difficult to do tray, or have just accepted that it's just, well, that's how life is. Yeah. And what I like about joint flows, and I've typically worked in hard fact companies, they tend to be quite evangelical. They're sales led motions because you have to remind people of the problems that they're in. Um, but the post decision, but I always say you have to get a decision before you can do a deal. But that post decision stage, the euphoria of a salesperson hearing, yeah, we're going to go with you, or you're our preferred supplier, that step afterwards, yeah, everybody forgets about. And I mean, you guys are shining a big light on it, but it is the hard fact of sales is that you can win a lot of decisions and close very little business.
Yeah, I love that. And we spoke about that before you hit, well, before we hit the record button. Speak to that a little bit, give it a little bit more clarity, because I understand what it means because we've spoken about it,
Yeah.
but elaborate a little bit. What's the difference there?
Yeah. So um, I'm always trying to divide problems down to small enough chunks that I can understand it. And then I guess it makes me look clever, I guess. But somebody will say to me, "Oh, well, our win rates, like 25%." I'm like, "Brilliant." So you speak to 100 companies and you win 25 of them. And they'll go, "Oh, no, 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 no. No, we win 25% of the dollars." Oh, and you start digging into it. So is it logo win rate or is it revenue win rate? Which one is it? So that's the first division I found. Then the second one I got to was I said, right, so help me out. When you go through the sales execution model, which Mick and I spent a lot of time with outreach, how many calls do you make to how many meetings, to how many opportunities you open, blah, blah, blah. I then suddenly realized for me, I needed to change the definition of win rate. So my definition, and this is logo or revenue, you should do it for both, is let's say I speak to 100 companies. The wins are how many of those 100 companies decide to do something. Doesn't necessarily have to be with us. And it might not even be, the old people, process, technology. Yeah. So you've ran a process that has inspired them to get rid of the status quo and to make a change. And change is tough. So people don't do that lightly. Right. So let's say you get 40% of people to make a change. So now we've got 40 people in play. By the way, those 40 organizations are kind of like the people should be using joint flow sort, because now we've gone past the emotional and we're in the rational stage. Now, many organizations may well take, because of procurement or decisions, one or two organizations into that close process. But you need to look and say, well, how many of those do we close? So if you're only closing 50% of those, in old terminology, I have a 20% win rate. I got 40% to make a change, and 50% of the ones that made a change changed to us. Now, just by dividing those two down, as a sales leader, you can find out, have I got a challenge with inspiring change, or have I got a challenge with inspiring change to us? And what I tend to find is when somebody's decided to make a change, that's an affirmative decision. That's the only yes you will ever hear. Right? Yes, we're going to make a change. Then what they do is they say no to all of the change agents apart from the one that they contract with. And so in that kind of post-decision process, you need to avoid a no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we take one step back and we think about the emotional decision itself,
Yeah.
because that's the first part. If you get across that hurdle,
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
you're into a process, right? How can you influence that? What's the best ways of going about influencing this?
Yeah. So oh, by the way, just before we move on to that, so I tend to
Yeah.
find in the businesses that I've worked with, that they're on one end of that win close spectrum or the other. They're either, we get 12% win rate and then like 99% close rate, and they think we're great, we never lose. I'm like, right, good. You're losing 88 times just earlier on in the process, yeah. Or they go like, yeah, we get 80% of people we win, and then we've got 15% close rate. And I'm like, it's true. You are literally the business development arm for your competitors, and they're spending no money on marketing because you're doing it all for them. You've got to work out how to differentiate. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
very rarely is it in the middle. It's one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, how do you how do you, in a world where there's an abundance of information, in a world where um, the collateral and the material that salespeople are providing is so compelling that for the uneducated, it's very difficult to choose. They basically believe whatever any salesperson tells them because it's so good. In a world where communities are telling you that, you know, solution X or solution Y is a good thing, and then the noise of, you know, 28,000 different vendors sell into sales and marketing, you know, the idea of getting them to emotionally say yes to whatever the initiative you're talking to, in my opinion, is no longer possible through just traditional discovery like this over a Zoom call and just asking them questions. And I always love a medical analogy. You know, if I'm going to a heart surgeon and let's say I'm getting a little bit out of breath, you know, I'm feeling some palpitations in my chest, I'm going to go and see a heart surgeon. That heart surgeon's going to ask me a few questions and probably get a sense of what's going on. And the heart surgeon's then going to say to me, right, we're going to have to bring you in. We're going to crack your chest open from chin to gusset. It's going to be a 6-hour operation. And, you know, it's going to take you 4 or 5 months to recover. You're good to go. We can book you in tomorrow. I'll be like, whoa, hang on a minute. That's a big change. That's scary. And I've literally told you 2 or 3 things, and I'm not sure I've got enough conviction there to get it done. Yeah. And actually, because of malpractice, you know, the doctor's going to do a whole bunch of CT scans or MRI scans and other tests. They do these deep tests because you cannot describe your problems in the level of clarity, in the level of depth, and what have you, that justify, you know, the expense, the effort, the resources that are required to get this through. We need to create an environment where we can diagnose the gap better for our customers. And we're rolling out at Sedna actually a reverse demo process. The inspiration for it, by the way, was Matt Gorniak and Goddard Abel, the founders of Big Machines. I remember speaking to them about 15 years ago, and they said they found that if they went and did a reverse demo with somebody, they had a 50% win rate. And by that was a collective win rate. They didn't dissect it down. It's like, geez. Said it was so powerful that we mandated it as part of our sales process. I spoke to them about 6 or 7 months later, and they said, actually, we've refined it still further. If we travel in the morning, do discovery in the afternoon, create a demo overnight, demo it back in the morning, and then travel back in the afternoon, we now have an 85% overall conversion rate. And then they found that if a customer agreed to go to dinner in that middle night and the customer paid, it was a 100% win rate because they'd already emotionally bought in at that point. Yeah. And so we do the same. And what I found is it doesn't matter how many questions we ask our customers, they can't describe their problem with enough conviction because it's a hard fact. They've been living in Outlook for the last 30 years. They left uni and have worked in Outlook their entire working life. They can't describe the problem. It's just well, that's just how it is. They can't even visualize something different. And so we now spend time, importantly, not trying to find stuff that we can demo. This has to be genuine curiosity. And so the mindset I try and instill in the team is you're trying to learn what they do so that if they went on holiday tomorrow, you could do it. So you ask them about every facet of the business. You fixate on how they describe things, the language that they use. You're looking for what they really like, what frustrates them, what can't be missing, and so on and so forth. It takes a good hour to do it. And then if you've done it properly, you should have no opinion at the end of that hour as to whether we're a good solution or not. You're going to have to listen back to it, or you're going to have to look at your notes. You're going to have to analyze it deeply, get into the language, understand how they describe certain things. And then what we do overnight is we tailor the demonstration. We have 2 slides. The first slide tells them everything we're not going to demonstrate them. And the number of times they go, but we're interested. Yeah, but it didn't come up yesterday. This is about dealing with status quo. The second slide is what we're going to show them. And the demo is no longer teaching or training like most demos are. We literally go, when you showed us this yesterday, you did this. Here's how it's done here. And they just have these really powerful eureka moments. And those moments, in my mind, build inertia, build emotional commitment, build a deeper desire, understanding of the issues and challenges they're facing, and also gives us the lexicon to be able to create this inertia, this mass that allows you to to barge through every process that most companies have put in place to stop them spending money. And the post-sales process needs needs motivation and needs momentum, and it needs conviction to be able to get through it. There are a lot of things where you'll get a win and then they give up in the close phase because it just gets too difficult to navigate it. And the final thing I'd say on that is, as you go through that process, what most sellers confuse is in the current climate, most of the people you sell to maybe buy one thing a year. And yet salespeople, we think they're as knowledgeable in that post-close process as they are, and we're doing it 15 times a quarter. I mean, frankly, it's just disrespectful. And it puts your buyer's dignity at risk because you're putting them into a situation where they could expose, flaws in their understanding and their process and what have you. And no wonder they start to ignore you because they're getting embarrassed.
Very good. So for those listening to the podcast, you see what we're speaking about. Take a pause, listen to it, take some notes. That's going to change your life, probably for the better. So Tom, we spoke about having the wrong insights to start with, win rates versus close rates, first making the initiative happen, and then actually being the vehicle for that initiative to happen. We spoke about reverse demos, which is about almost demoing the problem first to then demo the solution, illustrating the problem. Is that a fair?
Yeah, it's effectively, obviously there's a broad audience of people who are going to read your podcast. And in my scenario, we sell an application, a piece of software. What we get them to do is we get them to demonstrate how they currently do their job with the software that they've already got. And that unanimously highlights significant flaws that we can then attach emotional value to build that momentum to get the only yes you ever get in sales, which is yes, I'm going to change. You never get a yes, I'm going to change to you. And so if it's professional services, it's something else you're selling. Ultimately, you're trying to get them to show you what they currently do. Stephen Covey once said, "Seek first to understand before you can be understood." And I think in this Zoom world, discovery for some reason has been ring fenced to a 30-minute initial conversation. And I don't know about you, I'm not willing to spend a couple of $100,000 on somebody who's asked me questions for 30 seconds or 30 minutes. Probably 10 minutes telling me about the company. And it's just not, it's not how it's done. You've got to get an innate understanding of their business.
Yeah, I love this approach, Tom, especially the way that you've articulated it. My question to you is it might be a simple answer, but is it difficult to convince your prospect to go this way around? Because the reason
here's 2 things. It's not difficult to convince them if you have the mindset that you are unwilling to work with anybody who won't do it. So I have a salesperson in my business, one of the biggest prospects in their entire territory won't engage in a reverse demo process. And they've told them no. Come back when you're ready. I'm not willing to basically show up and throw up, put 1,000 features on the table, see if any of them, inspire you to make a change, because it's just a waste of my effort. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. That goes to my core on some of the Sandler stuff. Your time is infinitely valuable. You must never give it away. The second thing is, you do have to position it. And our positioning is, hey, look, one of the worst things that can happen in this process is we're going to invite you and your colleagues to an hour-long meeting. At the end of it, they're all going to say to you, well, that was a waste of time because you never saw anything. And in actual fact, something like us, it's probably going to have to be 2.5 hours because there's just so much capability. What I think is more respectful to you is to actually spend a bit more time understanding how you do your work and then tailoring our environment to you. And we use Faraz, who's the CEO of Hook, another company I worked with for a bit of time, introduced me to this product called Demo Monkey. I love it. Demo Monkey reskins demos. So, we've got like ship names in our demo environment. We can just go into Demo Monkey and do a replace. It just replaces the words on the fly on the screen. And so it's their ships and it's their operators. It looked like we have had a couple of customers go, hang on a minute, that's not our email you've got, is it? And I'm like, no, 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 no. We've just made it a little bit more familiar for you. Yeah, so that when you're looking at it, they can see it in their context.
Yeah, I can see how that has a massive
Yeah.
impact actually on your ability to close business because
But think about
so
it.
if they engage in that process that way round as well, there's clear intent
But it becomes a
also.
flywheel effect as well. So
Yeah.
if when I'm doing these reverse demos, if you're like Big Machines and you're getting a 50% close rate off it, I start with 100 prospects and 50 of them end up buying us. You're going to start to put a bit more effort into things because I'm getting a return on it. And nobody likes hitting tennis balls down the other end of the court and there's nobody there and they have to go and collect them every time. If you keep getting a few back, yeah, you enjoy it. It's called a game, right? If you're just doing demos the whole time and nothing ever comes back, what kind of demos do you start to run? Oh, just dolly it over there. I'm only going to have to go and pick them up in a minute. I'm not gonna make an effort.
Yeah.
You've got
I
to
love it.
return on effort employed is a financial metric. Funnily enough, it's also a motivation metric for sales reps and for sales consultants and pre-sales people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Awesome.
you've got the right metrics. You're starting from the prospect side in terms of understanding you're reversing the demo, you then demoing to the problem.
Yeah.
What's next? Like how do you actually close that loop of okay, I'm gonna make a change and now you're gonna need to win the vehicle to that change.
Yeah. So as I said before, regardless of whether you have an optimized process with something like joint flows, there is still stamina required to get a win to a close. Yeah, because they need to go through a process. And especially, if you're selling to any substantial kind of organization, everything that's in place in that business is there to protect itself from not spending money on something that doesn't pass muster. So they actually create deliberate hurdles in the process and they compartmentalize information. And you have, oh, well, there's these lawyers on the, and there are these outside lawyers as well. And there's these procurement people. And then we have the security people. And then we have an executive who's involved. I would suggest where possible, you get as many of those people as part of the emotional process. But I mean, that to me is kind of like textbook sales. Yeah, you need to engage seven. We all know in reality, you get access to those people when there's a win and you're in the close process. So unless you've got mass, momentum, inertia from that emotional part done by the reverse, you're not going to have enough traction to be able to get through the next part of the process. And the next part of the process, in my opinion, is avoiding a no. It's not getting a yes. It's survival of the fittest. And
Yeah.
one of the ways of getting through there, people say time kills all deals. Well, guess where most of the time is? And most of the time, inevitably, sits in that post-sales process. I know people will tell you that, oh, well, our sales cycles take 9 or 10 months. If they actually opened the opportunity at the point at which the buyer was engaging, the emotional stage takes no longer than 6 weeks. It's then the rational stage, could be an RFP, because remember the emotional stage, I am changing. Now we're in an RFP process for a year. If you wrote the RFP, you've got the win, and it's now about managing that process. So, being clear about what that looks like, executing flawlessly on it, making sure that you parallel process where you can, being clear with the customer. If I'm going through the desert and I can't see the finishing line, lots of people give up. Tell them you've only got 6 kilometers to go. I'm going to make the last push. Nobody's ever thinking about, what's left. What are the next steps in the process? And so sometimes the no is actually just silence. They give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and technically, is there a good way to do that? Like obviously, sellers like join flows. I'm going to do my own advertising here, but when you're in a process of getting from the yes to the no, like to the finish line, how do you teach your reps to run parallel threads, discover the requirements, deliver on the requirements, keep the inertia? I like the word inertia versus momentum. I think there's power in it that doesn't necessarily belong into momentum. Like, how do you structure that?
Yeah. So I'm a one of the mistakes I've seen with, because look, digital sales rooms try and do a bit of this stuff. And you log in. I've logged into digital sales rooms, I don't know how many times. And I get it sent to me after the first meeting, and there's this mutual action plan in there. It's got 35 steps in it. I'm like, wow, I don't know if I'm willing to get started on this. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking, and this is just this whole thing. So my um my advice and guidance structurally would be, one, as a business, start to measure when you get a win and make sure that you hold people accountable getting to the win in time, and and learn what are the factors that get you there. It might be that you need to have spoken to 5 people. It might be that you have to have had a reverse demo. It might be that there's never more than 4 days between meetings. Could be 10 days between meetings. You have to get somebody high. So I say get high, get wide, get active, get ahead. Get ahead is, in the first instance, if this is like Breaking Bad, the TV series, in the first instance, all you're telling them is there's 6 seasons or 5. I don't even know how many seasons there are of Breaking Bad. Maybe there's 3 seasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all the detail you get them. We're going to go through this stage where we're both going to decide together, is there enough in it? And it's more likely I'll say no than you will. So I've changed that slightly. The middle stage is where we work out whether it fits for you, and the third stage is whether it fits for your company. Yeah. And as we get into each stage, I'm going to drill into a little bit more detail. So then, once you're getting close to the post-sales process with my champion, I'd start to show them the episodes in season 2 and say, look, this is kind of what we're getting into. I've always said, and Mick, I'm a big fan of, I'm a trained project manager myself. I think post-sales is a project management process. It's where sales becomes professional. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a show anymore. It's about being low risk, dependable, you know, their dignity is on the line. Yeah. So I lay it out. I say these are critical path items. These are things that we do. I'm at that point because I know I've got to win. They decide the most difficult thing is to get somebody to say they're going to change. At that point, they're not going to say no, or if they say no, I can't do that. It's not an objection at that stage. It's actually a cry for help.
Yeah.
You need to reframe. Somebody says, "Oh, we're not going to get to legal." What they're actually saying is, "I haven't managed to get to legal before. I need your help."
Yeah.
Yeah, and you lay it out for them. Then when you get into into the real post, then you can start to drill into the detail and start to put people against it, and they'll thank you for it. But at every stage, I'll be making sure in a buyer-centric process, hey, look, we've done this a ton of times before. This covers every base that we've ever come across in every single customer. I've had certain situations where we've only needed 2 steps and it's done. So I'm with you, my champion. I'm showing you everything. The scenario normally is we're deleting things, not adding things, because I've gone comprehensive with you. Yeah. But now at least, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So who do we involve in that? Does that follow after this, or can we do it before or after? Oh, I don't know. And then always be ready with social inclusion. Typically, when speaking with other customers at this stage, they work in parallel. Oh, okay.
I can do that too. Yeah.
Makes them feel like, yeah.
Well, it's not that. Again, this person does it once a year, and you're asking them a question. Should we speak to security first or last? And they'll give you an answer because you put them on the spot. It's
Yeah.
likely to be right.
Isn't it often the case as well that a lot of the buyers haven't actually bought before either within that company?
Could well be. We just assume they're experts,
Yeah.
and they're not.
Yeah.
Now, again, you have to do this with, it's a nurturing voice. It's a project manager's voice. It's firm but fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
done this 100 times. I know that if we don't go through security, we're at big risk for some companies. For others, it's irrelevant. Yeah. I'm just using as an example. Then you have to have it as part of the process. If it's the biggest area where you get the most no's, how early in the post-sales process should you have it? Right at the beginning.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Disqualify early. You need to post-close disqualify early as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tom, it's been amazing having you on. I feel like we could speak for hours and our listeners could just fill up notebooks and notebooks with all the learnings that they're taking from the conversation. But unfortunately, our time is almost coming to an end because I think some of us have a hard stop as well. We are starting a new tradition on the show, and it's going to be the first one. So you won't have a question to answer, but what you have the ability to do is leave a question for our next guest. And so when they come on, they'll have to answer your question.
Okay. Are they
That guarantees.
are they predominantly people who have sold something?
Yeah, sales
Predominantly.
leaders.
Yeah.
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 My question would be for them to explain to you what is the deal that they are most proud of, and what made them so proud of it. And oftentimes it's not the biggest deal they did. It's just the one that, for whatever reason, for them, depends probably what their passion is, but it's, I've always found asking somebody what the deal they're most proud of tells you more about the salesperson, and how they think about sales than anything else.
Awesome. We will make sure we ask that and we'll ping you the link to the next episode as well so you can see the answer.
Brilliant.
But thank you so much for joining us, Tom. It's been an absolute pleasure. This has been the Revenue Revolution podcast. Thank you for joining us. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.